Trifecta and Luminosity. You're right here at the precipice of the end of the season. I don't know why I feel so somber. It's exciting. It's fall. It's almost fall. We're going to land soon. So you know what? Let's dial it up. Can we get some music? Production definitely.
You want an
doesn't
air
have
horn?
music ready. You got an air horn?
We're getting air horns this year, and a T-shirt cannon.
I have been I heard the air horn somewhere in the background. I've been asking for a T-shirt cannon since before I worked here. I've been working here for 3 years, and I've been doing events for 5. And at launch tournament, I said, "Can I get a thump, thump?" And they said, "Absolutely not." And they've been saying absolutely not for 5 years now.
Yeah, but now that we put it out there in the open,
hey,
how could they possibly say no?
T-shirt cannon for HRX. Let's take a look at the standings real quick and see where all of these teams are. We just watched Splice beat up Counter Logic Gaming, so that secures them in that 3rd spot. E-United and Space Station will be representing North America here at LAN, so that's all said and done. But we still have to see Trifecta and Luminosity gear up and see what they're going to look like towards the fall split.
And as you can tell, Splice actually in the positives there as far as their game plus or minus is concerned. So they'll still have the slight edge over Trifecta, even if Trifecta are to come out on top in this set. So Splice, I think, solidifying themselves in that 3rd place position. But Trifecta, I mean, there's still plenty more that we've yet to see, I think, from this team. I think they've had some very impressive moments as of late. It was a little bit of a lull period for them at the start. Things were kind of shaky. You bring in a new mid laner, you expect to not really, have the most phenomenal summer split of all time. I think that Trifecta knew what they were getting into, bringing Paul on board, and that they were expecting to play this for the late game.
Yeah, you know, I was talking during the last cast. If you're just joining us, sorry. But I talked about Splice and how they had been consistently really improving. Trifecta, I think, have had games where they have looked better than Splice, but it's been inconsistent. So perhaps they've had higher highs, but they've also had more frequent lows. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily a terrible thing, considering it is the end of the split. These guys all are looking towards fall. For me, I just need to see how they finish. How do you do against LG in your last game of the season? I want to see fireworks. 4th of July joke. I want to see fireworks here this Friday.
I want to see Mask continue to make plays like the one we just witnessed
that
mini clip.
Yeah, I saw that.
The last breath immediately as soon as that fatal strike's no longer a CC immune. I mean, it's just quick and precise. And that is one thing that could lead into a little bit more of those consistency features that we haven't really been able to witness from Trifecta.
Yeah, I mean, there's somebody that I really respect when it comes to high-end Smite. He said Mask could be the best jungler in North America, which is kind of wacky considering how out of the running his team was. This was like 4 weeks ago. And he was just sitting there saying, yeah, Mask just could be the best jungler in North America. So definitely just watch out for him. Mask out of control, weakened across the way. This LG team, I think, came out of the gates with a lot of steam and were perhaps better than anybody anticipated, and I think better than some of the other squads. But as we're almost halfway done with Season 5 here, other teams improved. And I didn't really see that same level of improvement coming out from these 5.
Luminosity is kind of in limbo right now, right? Because they didn't make any roster swaps, and I think that Weekend and the guys have made it really clear that they're not looking to change their roster. And I'm on board with them. I don't think that they really need to change anything. I think it's just about continuing to build on each other. This is a team where, for what it's worth, I kind of view them a little bit having that, like, SK vibe to them, where they're looking to amp it up in the fall. That's what I mean by that.
I was going to say.
Not that I think that they're
rude.
playing like SK. I mean like they are looking towards the fall split in the same way that SK is looking towards the fall split to be their final stand to try and get to Worlds. I think that the potential is definitely still there. These guys are undoubtedly much better than the SML teams, and even though I know Very Nice to Me and Armada might want to disagree with that, I still say the fact stands. When you're playing at a nonstop SPL level of competition, you are going to be at the highest possible level of gameplay achievable.
Never tell me I look like SK. Picks and bans for game number 1 here, Trifecta versus Luminosity. Trifecta will have the first pick and the first ban, of course. We'll see how they're doing, if they're all shook up. You like that one?
All shook up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Shook likes that. Trifecta Shook, by the way, who's their CEO, in case you guys didn't catch that one back at home.
I've been holding that.
We get it.
Next Trifecta video is going to be all shook up. That's funny. Either way. It's really Friday, folks. It's real Bomb King hours
It's
here.
real last set of the summer split hours.
Yeah.
On a Friday.
Bomb King's like just chilling right there, like tossing stuff at us. First round of bans out. No Chernobog, no Shibalanke, no Terra, and no Serket. Trifecta with the first pick overall. Chonga, Athena.
I think it's interesting, though, that Luminosity, rather than worry about banning away any of the Guardians and any of the mages that have been high priority, now, look at Zapman.
Yeah.
Do not let Zapman get Chernobog. Do not let Zapman get Shibalanke.
Well, because watching this team, sorry to cut you off there, it's been Mask is consistent almost regardless of what character you give him. Paul, same idea. Zapman, when he runs the game, he runs the game. But when he doesn't, he's kind of invisible. And so kind of banning him out here is a nice look for LG.
I think this was the gamble, though, that Luminosity were hoping for, in that Trifecta wouldn't opt for a first pick Artemis. Artemis, she's strong. Not sure how comfortable Trifecta feel, though, with picking her in that first slot.
Sure.
I love this, though. I mean, you're giving two very distinct power picks towards Mask and Paul. Paul's had some really outstanding moments there on the Raijin in past games, and I don't think we've ever really witnessed a poor performance because of Paul's mechanical gameplay on the Raijin. I think the times where he has gone negative in his KDA on the Raijin or hasn't been as impactful in a match has usually been the result of Trifecta just falling super behind in general.
Or him being over-aggressive. And at the end of the day, I think that it's much more, I would much rather you be over-aggressive than timid. Because we can always pull that back, and that's what we saw in the beginning.
That's what you hope, at least.
Yeah, sure. With Paul, maybe not. Second round bans coming out. No Nemesis, no Hercules, no Daji, and no Mercury.
You know what, though? Something I will never forget about Paul was watching his interview when he came here for the minor league land, or for the land that involved the minor league teams. And he said, no, I think Aggro asked him something along the lines of, what do you expect Insignum to do against you? And Paul started off his statement with, they're going to ban Hebo. And then he ended it with, I'm going to play Hebo. And I didn't know what to make of it, but Paul ended up being right because he did get the Habwa 2 games in a row.
He's able to do it. This time around, we'll be on the Raijin, and Zapman will bring out the Ullr, one of his many go-to picks. When you've been playing Smite as long as Zapman in one position, I guess you have a plethora of go-to selections. We'll see how we can do with the stand switcher. LG get the Hebo, and it looks like we're going to see... No, we'll be...
Jungle.
Yeah.
Habwa.
Right. Yeah, we got the mid-lane hunter. So yeah, Jungle Hebo, that's where we expect it to be. An interesting choice for Weekend, who generally goes tankier options.
I like this because Weekend has the hyper carry potential. I don't think that there's any issues with Weekend as a player in terms of playing these gods that you're relying on some of that hard burst damage. It's the hard burst damage, I think. I mean, Trifecta, they're clearly concerned about Weekend playing the heavy burst gods. I mean, they take away the Mercury, they take away the Daji. I think both of those gods would have been great also against Trifecta's composition, but I want to see this Habwa camping the Ullr.
Yeah, that's absolutely what I want to see as well. LG pulling out a rare Hebo jungle. Does it work? Game one.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Taco. Finch and Totally going to be the ones that bring you the action. It is going to be that Habwa over there in the jungle. But I have some questions about both sides here, too. I mean, the Ullr over like the likes of Hachiman or some of these other hunters, that's going to be their primary ADC.
It's just something that Zapman is known for. It's this aggressive style. This is a good idea to try to get some early momentum with the Ullr, trying to shut down any sort of late game potential coming from the Medusa on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah, it really does feel like something where you want to try and win the lane pretty early and kind of be a bully, and those things both sound like Zapman to me. He's always willing to fight. He's always kind of willing to try and push it back and make everything his, at least within the context of the game. So we'll see if he gets that done here.
And it's going to be important to see if he gets that momentum, because the Gold Fury control is so important for both of these teams with how much action that they probably want to get off off the table. These picks are super aggressive.
And it's going to be the same for that Habwa, isn't it? So let's see which one of those ends up working more, and which one's won you over, Mixer Chat. Who do you think is going to win this game? Go ahead and vote for us now in the poll. That way we can track just how well you're following the game. I'm going to be very, very interested. I promise. I'm so interested.
I think LG have a slight edge with Weekend's Habwa. I think that the amount of damage that's going through on the magical side of things is difficult to build around in the early game for the most part. And if you don't build around the Weekend's Habwa, then you have to worry about the Medusa that's coming through as well. So there's going to be different stages of power spikes between this physical and magical side.
particularly if he causes some problems for Scary D. Really, anyone on the map, Neil could potentially have that same problem too. Wherever he goes, you kind of have to decide, am I going to itemize in the magic defense early for him, or am I more worried about Keegs or Clout and that physical damage? And when you have that early question that you're posing to your opponent, it really can kind of throw off their build path. Now, in this situation where they have the double hunter, even though they have the magical jungler, they might not care that much because you want to itemize against these hunters.
That's true, and that's going to be important for them to find that early pressure, even if they don't necessarily. Now that I think about it, Luminosity's late game is still very powerful. Their only weakness is that they have 2 frontliners as opposed to 3 traditional ones. Mask is not probably going to build super tanky. Actually, now that I see his build, actually rushing for some magical defense, probably going to be a Runic Shield if I were to guess. Ankele is all fine and dandy, but I think Runic Shield would be slightly better to be able to limit some of the magical power on the other side.
That's right. The aura for Runic Shield strong. It gives a little bit of health on there too, as opposed to Ankele, which gives a little bit of cooldown. So it depends on what Mask wants. If he wants to be a little bit tankier and reduce some of their power, then probably Runic. But if he wants to be able to get off his abilities a little bit more often and maybe survive like one quick burst, then the Ankele might do that part a little bit better.
Getting the left side mid Harpies first is going to be Trifecta, while LG secure themselves the right side. Going to see a little bit of action. What a surprise when Weekends Hobwa is looking for those early gameplays.
He doesn't even let you walk towards your red buff for free, not on the Hobwas. He gives them a little bit of a hello as they move into the jungle. Moving over here towards the duo lane, though, Zapman rushing right into that Transcendence right away. Sometimes we still see these paired with Blessings, but Zap wants to get this stacking as soon as possible.
It's not a bad idea to, get this right off the table. You still have enough to get quite a bit of potions. Only need 1,400 gold to finish that off. It's not terribly a long time to finish this item, as opposed to the Devil Gloves, which is almost the same exact pacing. Probably about 1,700 gold, I think, to finish it off.
Great combination. Clout is forced to use those purification beads as the axe comes out from Zapman. The same moment Neil dashes in aggressively and Clout responds correctly, gets right on out of there, but should be much easier, especially once Neil has that taunt, for them to punish this Artemis. I mean, it's so scary against an Athena.
The late game is going to favor out Clout very heavily against this Ullr. I think that the idea for Zapman and NeiruMah is to just group up and rely on Mask's global pressure to shut down Clout. Maybe even have Mask rotate before even NeiruMah hits level 5 and Zapman hits level 5, because junglers will just heavily out experience gain the side lanes with just how much jungle there is in the mini-map to gain. You're able to get level 5 way quicker than any other player in the game. But speaking of which, keegsmate actually hits level 4 before Weekend does.
Keegs able to come out in a pretty good spot here. Weekend been a little bit slow on this same farming path. Mask has been moving around the jungle very, very well so far. Been able to find some nice paths. He's also able to, of course, upgrade the Acorn while he's out here on the field, so he'll get a little bit more movement speed sooner than Weekend will to try and help him out. Even with that carpet, Mask shouldn't have too hard of a time zooming around the map.
Should be relatively clean, as NeiruMah is looking for someone that's possibly going to invade the red buff, but no such efforts out of LG quite yet. They want to just slow it down. Going for a more late game style this weekend as he rushes probably a Warlock staff. I would assume that he wants to get a lot of health under himself before he looks for any sort of early skirmish.
I like this, and there's been sort of a rise totally of stacking items on junglers just in general, right? Transcendence has kind of come in as a big power bank item, not even early on. Sometimes third items for physical junglers. Warlocks could certainly be a great option because you are clearing minion waves, you are getting camps. There's so much up now, and there's a lot of items where the stacks are nice, but I mean, you don't have to have them.
It's very true. You don't necessarily have to go for the stacks when you can look for the kills with the mobility. Now switching things up to go for probably the Mad Guy's boots. Mask level 5 making his presence on the left lane, but Weekend hears it. He's baiting this out.
Target's going to be Geno. Knock up land. Zapman's there with a bladed arrow. Axe lands and Mask finds first blood. Weekend going to be in some trouble. Crushing wave nearly drowns the rat, and Clout is there to finish it off. The board does stun NeiruMah, but he gets knocked up. Weekend wants to keep this train rolling.
Oh, that kill was so important because Clout hits level 5 off of it with a return board. Zapman barely able to avoid the crushing wave. Not going to get hit by that one. And tanky Artemis sitting at level 4 with a lot of sustain between health potions and health chalice is able to top herself off.
Weekend is trying to stay hidden in the jungle for a moment, but he falls back. Zapman still has the purification beads. He was not under that much pressure in that gank. It's not as if Weekend brings a ton of beadsable control. So in that situation, Zapman still feels comfortable.
And even though Mask dies, he gets the first blood, gets the bounty, still more experienced than Weekend on the flip side of things, able to just travel across the map a lot quicker simply because he had that acorn.
Scary D lands the knockup. Kiki gonna get dunked. NeiruMah comes through. Defender of Olympus is all it takes. We'll see Kiki in another 10 seconds because he's been sent back.
Ouch.
And he just teleported in recently.
That's just a big ouch. Weekend trying to defend his own back camps. No ultimate to speak of for either of these two players, but Weekend's not in a position to really fight into this quite yet. He's actually behind in the stacking department of the Assassin's Blessing too. One more stack from Mask. He's going to have that extra penetration.
Have that finished up, and he should be able to get it relatively soon. Comes over to grab this blue buff along with Scary D, and indeed finishes it right on off. Meanwhile, Luminosity are going to come grab the oracles for a little bit of vision. Could certainly help. Mask did ult from pretty near that last time, so maybe having some vision can limit some of his pathing, but we'll see where it is that Mask wants to try and go here in this next fight, considering.
Nice little poke from Clout, forcing a health potion right off the bat for Zap. And any sort of poke you could do onto Zap here that doesn't have Devil Gloves is more and more valuable.
Weekend might have just saved Keegs, to be honest. That's how much damage Paul's already doing with that percussive storm, because he catches him in the middle of it with the knockup to interrupt the damage. Keegs was going to take very nearly the full brunt of that. He's healing, sustaining up just a little bit, but Mask wants to keep fighting. Scary D's rotating. Weekend is going to be the target. Crushing Wave, perfect to reposition, and Kiki comes in to defend.
Also doing a little bit of damage onto Mask once he landed. Is going to stop the chase in its tracks, but forces Weekend to back without his ultimate, and he doesn't really have that much to farm on the minimap, only his back left camps.
Mask, on the other hand, is going to come down and start farming right away. Wasn't in quite as much duress as Weekend was, but you can see already the aggression that this Ratatoskr lets you play with early. That ultimate is such a strong engagement tool to force out ultimates from Weekend, to kind of force them back, and just kind of throw off his jungle timing a bit. And
without his own speed buff, Weekend needs to kind of just wait back. He gets the back left camps, now waiting for his speed buff, and this allows Mask a little bit more pressure. It will be the on-Keelee rush instead of the runic shield. He wants also just the additional boost of physical power between these two items.
Neil's ready to ult on over. Defender of Olympus going to come out. It's blue buff they're trying to take. He's going to Scary D. Taunt brings Kiki back in. Scary D only needs a little bit more damage. The stun creates some space. It's like shells come out. A nice Wrath of Terra knocks up both. Geno keeps Kiki alive. Can't find the pull to get them back under the tower, but Mask is not done being aggressive yet. Weekend rotates over. Tycho drums looking for damage, and Keegs has to retreat as well.
Keegs is not worried about the Tycho drums if he can return the favor. Scary D collapsing onto Weekend in no man's land without his crushing wave. Now Scary D between three members, but it's a 3-on-3, but Paul's the target.
He's had to use Aegis already. Mask returns for the stun. Paul does eventually fall. Clout takes down Mask as well, but Neil does get Keegs. It's 2 for 2 so far. The Boar is going to come out to try and lock down Scary D, but a good ultimate to get him away. Root coming out. 2-man pull from Neil to interrupt, but Clout, undeterred, finds another kill.
The triple minefield is not going to allow NeiruMah to go anywhere. It's a 4 for 2 at the end of the day, with Weekend respawning. Luminosity getting the better end of this one.
Yeah, Trifecta just a little bit too far forward there in that fight. LG was going to be able to return and add more numbers to that fight than they were, and that basically brings this game back to parity between these two squads. Trifecta, we're feeling aggressive, moving up to the jungle, and get a little bit punched.
It was basically the result of Clout rotating in that team fight. If you're going to take a fight that deep in the jungle of LG, you have to have a little timer in the back of your mind of whenever that hunter is going to be rotating. I'm sure Zapman definitely calls like, hey, listen, Clout's not here, so expect some boars coming your way, but I don't think Trifecta got that memo.
Not at all. They certainly got it once he showed up, but at that point, it's a little bit too late. Oracle's going over to LG once again, and this game's been evened out. Rather importantly, Kiki and Clout get a ton of credit off that fight. 2-1 and 2 now for the solo laner to give Kiki a little bit of a lead over Scary, but Mask wants to rectify that. It's already dashed. Defender of Olympus coming in as well. Yet another gank attempt onto this Artio. A taunt brings him back in. Kiki's still standing for now, looking for the root for a little bit of healing, but Mask still gets him down.
So close to topping himself off, and he almost found a 3-man root. To hit 5 ticks on one enemy god is, you know, intermediate level. To hit all 5 on 3, now you're talking about to the most fullest extreme, and that's what's was about to happen to save the life out of Kiki. Not going to find it that time. The use of this Athena ultimate out of NeiruMah has helped out ScaryD not once but in 2 different situations to find those kills onto Kiki.
It's been a lot of attention paid to the solo lane so far. ScaryD and NeiruMah teaming up together. Mask has been a part of it as well to really try and slow down this Artio, not let her get to the late game where she can rotate over with her cripple field that disrupts so much of what Trifecta wants to do, especially Zapman and Mask, even Paul with the Thunder Crash, the stuns. There's so many tools at her disposal, so just try and limit her early.
So far, Trifecta are doing a good job of shutting down every member from LG except for Clout. Clout sitting at 3-0-1 as an Artemis is a little scary if you're transitioning into that mid to late game. There needs to be more attention on this Artemis that doesn't have any sort of natural gap closing escape abilities.
A lot of that came off that rotation is yet again a gank onto the solo lane. A great stun to interrupt Mask, dashes back in, Roots comes out from ScaryD and the Warcry to get a little bit of disruption, but Kiki this time is too tanky with that breastplate.
Breastplate giving so much protections, and more importantly that 20% cooldown reduction totaling up to 30 with a Shoes of Focus.
Yeah.
I don't think Kiki should be the target any longer with this item complete. You just need to focus on to Clout, or maybe still into Geno, considering he's still sitting at level 8. Doesn't have his second relic, only with Stone of Binding and Shoes of Focus up.
He could definitely be an interesting target for them if they want to try and catch him out. Or maybe even weaken. I mean, look how much he's been struggling behind Mask so far this game. Level 8, 0-1-1, not much player damage either. Only above Geno on the Sylvanus right now. This is a chance with this Hebo kind of getting out to a slow start to make sure he doesn't catch up for a while.
That's true. He doesn't have much late potential at this point in the game with that 2-level deficit just now hitting level 9, and it's only going to get harder and harder considering he's going for this Warlock Staff Rush, and then it's going to take him much longer to continue to farm up.
I know it's second item, but you can hardly call it rushed anymore as ScaryD is too tanky. Does get 2-man stun, but Mask is up in the air waiting to pick his target. He bounces one more time and lands on a Geno on the back end. Stun comes out. Ratatoskr lets him help out, but Paul comes in the backside looking for weaken. Geno does eventually take down Mask. Tycho drums on the Kiki, who's just too tanky. ScaryD tries to lock down weaken, but Kiki takes down NeiruMah as well. Luminosity win that fight front to back.
Pretty cleanly, honestly. Mask was, oh, I'm sorry, it was Paul doing a good job stopping Weaken from doing anything. Weaken was just basically being that jungler, waiting for his moment to shine, and because of all that attention, Paul wasn't damaging some of the other important frontliners.
And Mask ends up going a little bit too far forward. Kiki having quite a game for himself on this Artio. And I mean, can you imagine? It's a ton of attention, ton of fighting that's been over here on the solo lane side as he got a brief pause coming out from Clout. We'll get that sorted for him. But I mean, you don't normally have to deal with this much pressure on the Artio over there in the solo lane, but he's been handling it very well.
And the thing is, Mask rushing this on Chulainn is taking a lot of physical damage from keegsmate rather. Once the Medusa rotates, the Petrify is really bringing in the punch. Whether or not you get actually turned into stone, the damage is too much for this little Ratatoskr to handle. And this is where LG is starting to topple off. The mid pressure from keegsmate. Paul was just a second or two too slow to the party.
And this is where the double hunter composition is really interesting for me, totally, because I feel like he feels forced into this on Chulainn because he wants to go solo. There's the magical damage jungler, but there's still 2 hunters. There's still plenty of physical damage out, so it's not easy to itemize into that magic defense early. And I feel like Mask's been getting a little bit punished.
Definitely has been the case thus far, but still doing a good job at least getting an experience advantage over Weaken. Despite Weaken not dying,
Weaken's been watching a lot.
He hasn't been getting the experience that he truly needs to stay relevant in the game. But as long as the rest of his teammates are thriving, Weaken will still do those late game Habwa things that you truly need, between dropping the carpet to increase the mobility for his teammates, immuning some of the important slows, and just getting one important knock-up could be all it takes to win a late-game teamfight.
They can be disruptive enough just by themselves, and obviously, you know, you want Weaken to get to the point where the damage is certainly relevant. He's still on his way, but right now, one of the lowest farmed in the game, right there with NeiruMah and Geno. Trifecta, that's the one kind of shining light for those, that they've been able to slow down this Hebo. But they got to worry about Kiki on his Artio too.
I'll be surprised, I'm calling it now, that Weaken won't even finish stacking his Warlock Staff by the 25-minute mark. It's going to take a hot minute out of the jungle role to be able to get that going. Unless for some reason that LG just win the next team fight commandingly to be able to grant Weaken some free farm every single lane.
No, I get what you're saying. It would take something extraordinary, right, for him to be able to get it finished. So we'll see how much progress he's able to make on it as they 3-man split the red buff. Mask and the rest of Trifecta are kind of clumped up together around the Oracle, around these mid-Harpies, and Weekend's lurking around the corner. The collapse is on, taunted in. Mask hits him with the last bit of damage. Weekend already sit back to base.
All right, 27 minutes maybe until he finished stacking that Warlock staff. It's not going to be pretty for Weekend. Trifecta recognizing the build is going to force team fights every single minute onto LG.
They really should. Anything to keep him from being able to farm it up as Mask goes in aggressively. Paul has some damage for Kiki, who's not ready for the magic damage yet, but they turn around perfectly on NotGeno and Clout. Aegis comes out, but it's not enough. Petrify does hit Zapman and bring him very low, but that's not going to be enough either. Defender of Olympus, 3 members already down. We can just respawn double for Scary.
Scary D rooting Kiki during the dash from the bear. Trying to get away. The stun is good. The damage to the wall from Paul, too strong. Paul coming up clutch in that team fight. Zap was one basic attack away from death, and it was Paul's percussive storm that saved his life.
Weekend was behind, but he has a chance here now. Taunted back in, beads. Crushing wave lets him move through, but Trifecta still get the Gold Fury. Weekend still falls. Zapman gets credit for that. Trifecta win the fight front to back, an unofficial deicide and the Gold Fury.
So 29 minutes until he finishes off the Warlock stacks. It's not going to be pretty for Weekend yet again with his 3rd death. 2 consecutive deaths in less than 2 minutes of play. Trying to stop the Gold Fury. Not even successful in doing that as Trifecta secure that for themselves at the 15-minute mark. Starting to build about a 4,000 gold lead.
But we saw it that fight. Paul has become a problem for Luminosity Gaming. I love that for a moment, Kiki is the target focus, and Geno and Clout come in on the left-hand side. They just kind of all turn and go, okay, then we'll blow you all up. They get Geno first, Clout's low, and they're able to take him down as well.
Pretty clean stuff thus far out of Trifecta since they started to group up in these team fights.
Yes.
No more silly gank attempts onto Kiki that goes nowhere, getting themselves now a tier 1 tower for 500 gold. Able to start putting it into the bank as Weekend sees there is no more blue buff for him. But Clout on the left side, still relatively clean in his performance. 3-1-1 off the result of that last team fight. Sitting as a level 15 Artemis, he could be the hero that LG need to win this game.
Looking across his direct opposition, Zapman, on the other hand, looks to be itemizing into a little bit of defense. Looks like the Mad Guy's cloaked to try and help him get away from some of this control. Probably for the Hobwa knockup, I got to think they're trying to avoid that one big stun, or what's he looking for here?
That's true. That knockup is going to be annoying, especially if Geno goes for the Blink as the second relic.
Right.
That's almost unavoidable. Maybe even to stop some of the Kiki shenanigans. He doesn't have Blink on the Artio, so you don't have to worry about him. You can at least see him coming and adapt to the situation.
NeiruMah dashes in. Geno immediately responds with the Wrath of Terra. That's been the response we've seen for these Athenas lately, but that does mean his big ultimate is down. No axe stun, but Scary D could potentially loop around. But looks like no, the rest of Trifecta are falling back. There's no Gold Fury for them to grab, so they're just kind of giving up on the push.
As good as Wrath of Terror is in terms of setting up the play onto an Athena, Scary D casually in a 1v4. Athena ultimate on top to give him some mitigated damage. Kiki not really taking too much damage. The play is actually onto Keeks.
That's perfect. They go into the mid lane. Zapman deletes him before the Petrify can even come through the team fight. Tier 1 tower still stands, but the target switching from Trifecta has been so clean this game,
Keeks,
and Luminosity have not been able to answer.
Keeks did not expect that one. A little bit too late on the beads trigger finger, and he was caught in no man's land in a 5-on-4 without keegsmate on the battlefield. Trifecta going for the tier 2 mid.
Geno gets taunted back in. Immediately Paul's there with the damage. Tycho drums, but Neil gets blown up underneath the tower. The boar comes out from Clout and disrupts everything. Trifecta might be ahead, but they can't quite force down this tier 2 with brute force yet.
Late game Artemis is starting to show its ugly head. Trifecta need to back off. They successfully hold on to their tier 2 towers. keegsmate now revives. Scary D's still kind of zoning like for no reason whatsoever other than Zapman getting the purple buff stripped away.
The last time Scary D was zoning for no reason, they deleted Keegs from the map. I don't know, man. I like the way that they're playing around this. Defender of Olympus who's on the Chulainn on the right-hand side. They immediately come back under the mid lane. I mean, I kind of just want to let Scary D do whatever he wants if it sets up stuff like that.
As long as the Athena ultimate is available,
yes,
he should be looking for those plays. But with NeiruMah still dead, and now reviving without his ultimate quite yet. A little risky, honestly, especially when this Artemis is going to start really hurting. And before Scary D gets Mergardi Mail complete and not even having Hide in a Melee or Thorns, you got to respect Clout's Artemis until you get Mergardian.
At this point, we just saw why Neil kind of got punished there underneath that mid-tier 2 tower. Trifecta might have got a little bit too ambitious with that one, but they cleanly disengaged. It was really only Neil that they lost, and they got so much on the front end of that fight that I think it's okay to learn that lesson that way. And now they backed up, got a little more physical procs. They should be good to go.
Yeah, they should be relatively clean in the next engagement, especially if they just allow Scary D to go in first. Once he does get that Mergardian Mail completed, he should be the one absorbing the tail end of the brunt of the damage. So, like, NeiruMah definitely wants to burn some beats, so that's why he's dashing and the taunting, but he has less base health than Scary D does with the 5-level difference.
It's a ton of protection for Scary D, and it's just hard to bring him down. As Trifecta grouped up around, what, 6 minutes ago or so, after the last time that they realized that ganking Kiki was an impossibility, and they haven't separated since. They've kind of been this roving ball of death ever since. They're trying to group up right now around the gold tree. You'll be back up in about 8 seconds, and LG look like they want to be around to defend.
I mean, it's going to be a good opportunity for them to do it, considering Weekend's still only at 38 stacks of Warlock staff. keegsmate even going for Soul Leader, wanting to force a fight with his 28 stacks. And look at Geno's Scarlet Thief sitting at 45. This is the perfect timing for Trifecta to force the issue.
LG have kind of itemized into these stacking items and not had time to finish. Geno's ward gets countered. Ratatoskr to immune getting taunted in, and Neil is taking a ton of damage. They blow him up immediately. Mass now looking for the retreat path. Paul has the Tycho jumps, but he has to spread the damage out. Scary D's on the backside. Mask up in the air. He's low, but he's looking for a target to try and knock up. He has to fall back, and Trifecta are routed.
Everybody was grouped up. That would have been the perfect landing for Mask with the AoE damage from Paul to follow up. Mask not trusting his teammates to bail out. Scary D absorbed so many abilities, forced out an Aegis even on top of the things, and LG perfectly timing all their ultimates to blow up NeiruMah. Geno avoids the taunt, not even the dash taunt, just a straight up walking up to you, taunting in the face. Wrath of Terror knockup setup allowed Clout to just get off all the damage.
That really has just been the new response to these Athenas as Pyromancer is being looked at by LG. Looks like Trifecta managed to steal that one away. Kiki is going to be the front line for this, but he gets taunted back in. Scary D and Zapman have plenty of damage in return. Axe stun lands too. Weekend waiting over the wall, but he only hits Neil. Trifecta want to get a little bit back after that Gold Fury fight.
Oh, Weekend in a little bit of trouble, but he still has Crushing Wave and the Water Carpet. Mask blinks in. He's going to get stunned. He has no defensive relics. However, he trades himself out for Keegs and Clout.
2 for 1. That ends up working so far. Wrath of Terror from Geno's good to interrupt, but Weekend does enough damage to take down Zapman, but immediately gets traded back out. Paul is ripping through the team fight on the Raijin. Geno could be the next one on the chopping block. The taunt pulls him back in. Paul needs a few more cooldowns to get it done, or maybe Scary D gets it as Geno falls as well.
Paul trying to run away. Percussive Storm not all it does hit at the last one. Uses his ultimate. Hits him with the barrel. I think that was an unofficial triple kill for Paul.
Deicide comes out as well. Kiki tries to turn around and take down Paul when he realizes how low he is, but Trifecta do a great job. LG overstay a bit. They win that fight. They grab the Gold Fury. They go for Pyro, but Trifecta don't give it up for free totally. They come in and punish.
That was a clean performance, but the way Keegs and Clout died to start things off was very troublesome. There was a lot of defensive relics forced around the Gold Fury side of things from Scary D's side, and that's why Keegs and Clout didn't have the beads available to really survive that encounter. Clean picks. Trifecta realizing the little holes to poke against LG.
LG now have to regroup. They had that great team fight where they kind of punished Neil for going in aggressive. That was the one fight that looked good for them all game. But aside from that, I mean, it's been all Trifecta, an 11,000 experience lead. Probably a lot of that is Mask and Weekend, along with a 6,000 gold lead as well. That differential not as large as I thought. It's spread out pretty well to the team, but Weekend still struggling a bit.
Oh, absolutely. His 4th death, still not even halfway done with the Warlock staff. I'm probably going to extend it another 2 minutes down to 31. At this point, it's taken forever. He needs to go find a lane to solo farm, and it's not the dual lane considering there's no tier 1 tower on the side of Trifecta, and that could mean that there's going to be some people farming in the opposite side. So you just got to allow Weekend to farm literally every single jungle camp.
Trifecta grouping it again. Look like they maybe won it tier 2. There's not really any farm here. No red buff, no gold fury, just oracles. They could always come force down this tier 1, or maybe try and catch Weekend in the jungle. Dash taunt gets beads, and Neil has escaped. In fact, the collapse is on to Kiki, who's left in between. Stun on the Scary D. Paul comes in for some return damage, and Scary gets poked very low. They're just going to settle for stripping purple.
The pull a little off the mark from Geno. He was rather too far away to connect onto anybody. Good disengage out of Trifecta, forcing the beads from Weekend. You know that Trifecta definitely calling out that timer, so they have a 2-minute window to look for Weekend again.
Zapman can't find the tier 1 tower. LG, 5-man defending an objective worth essentially 500 gold and a little bit of map presence on, at this point, the least important side of the map. So LG really don't want to let this one go as Trifecta have to fall back.
They understand that Scary D had to return to the fountain after that last little skirmish. He was a little too low for his own good, so playing it rather safe than sorry as the rest of LG trying to force a 5-on-4 fight. But now with Scary D around the corner, Trifecta can look for Weekend without the beats.
That was really brave. They trusted Scary D not to upgrade that teleport, I guess, and come right back, because he had it and certainly could have come up to some of those deep wards they have, but it ends up working out for LG. That tier 1 still stands, and they don't lose anybody else on the back end of that fight. Gold Fury still 50 seconds away, so Trifecta gonna fall back for now, but we talked about some of these stacking items. At least for everyone else, those are finished up. Soul Eater, good for Keeks now. Gauntlet, good for Geno. The rest of the squad is still ready to fight.
That's true. The rest of them definitely are. And Scary D optimizing even more for an anti-Habwa strat by going for this Runic Shield. I'm glad somebody out of Trifecta are respecting the late game magical power potential out of the Habwa jungle.
It's coming.
It's definitely coming. Like, yes, Weekend's getting shut down pretty well thus far with a 1-level deficit and not that many stacks close to his name, but level 20 Habwa is still a level 20 Habwa, and that Runic Shield is going to help out wonders, reducing some of that magical power.
And that's why it's so important that LG haven't given up any tier 2s yet. They haven't given up a Fire Giant. Yes, Trifecta have the lead, but they haven't really been able to do anything too impactful with it yet. Eventually that lead will be equalized as Paul is too far forward. He has to Thunder Crash away. Gold Fury has been leashed, and Mask had to use his ultimate as well.
Took too much damage. Caught in no man's land out of that one. LG really picking apart Trifecta when allowed to, and without your late game presence, Raijin sitting at level 20 with even red buff, mind you, that Trifecta can't necessarily win this fight.
Gold Fury's very low. The stun lands on the Kiki. Neil gets pulled back in. The boar comes out as well as NeiruMah tries to survive through the burst. Kiki's going to continue dashing through. Petrify and Keegs are able to take him down. Kiki's going to force everyone else back, but Scary D still wants to jump back in.
Oh, Kiki taking a lot of damage from Paul. There goes the Taiko drums. Needed one more barrel, but he didn't use the taunt or the fear. Scary D cleans up, but he's going to get cleaned up in return.
Keegs does it, but a lot of that damage came the way of Weekend with his crushing wave to force them all back. LG forced Trifecta into a bad fight, grabbed the Gold Fury, and a couple kills. They do get forced back at the end. Kiki falls, but LG showed that it's just been a little bit too long that Trifecta have waited, and they're starting to be evened out.
Even with NeiruMah picking up the Aegis as a second relic,
I saw that, yeah.
He still gets just targeted and blown up. Originally, Weekend's knockup was used first, the same time that the Wrath of Terror was used, and that's why you saw him being a little bit displaced, a little bit of a disconnect between Geno and Weekend in terms of who is going to knock up this Athena that's constantly looking for those dash taunts.
Look at all these relics that are down. That's part of why Paul had trouble moving further forward, is that his beads were burned at towards the beginning of that fight when he was just too far out of position, him and Mask both. And that really hurts when Taiko drums has to be used suboptimally, and you don't have the Through the Cosmos at all because Mask has to waste it early on. LG, or even when they all-in commit on a NeiruMah successfully, they're just going to look better because of what Trifecta wasted.
Mask being a little bit too loose with his ultimate in that last one. If you're not going to full-on commit with the ultimate in the air, then you might as well just hard disengage. Without Paul, that Gold Fury steal was hoping for a miracle. Zapman definitely has steal potential in terms of getting the hail of arrows through there, but if Weekend just uses, either of his abilities, that'll outweigh the Ullr.
Magai's cloak appears to have been popped as Zapman trades out with Geno here around the Pyromancer. No one's pulled it just yet. But that last fight from LG, a ton of things went correctly for that fight to go their way. Are all those same pieces going to align for them here around the Fire Giant as they counter-ward away the words of LG? Pyromancer being pulled, Luminosity are looking in, but Trifecta aren't going to all in just yet.
Good bait from Zapman. He's just trying to see if Geno can overstep his boundaries because it's a battle of who can blow up the other support first. Geno and NeiruMah are the targets.
Geno gets taunted in. Percussive Storm. They don't even need an ult. Paul removes the tree from the map. 5v4. Scary D goes in aggressively looking for the knockup on the Clout, but he drops the ult. Mask has a chance to get the knockup. He comes in on the backside. Petrify comes out, but Weekend gets controlled. He has to run away. He wigs and he wags, and he is managing to get away, but Paul pulls them all back in with the Taiko drums.
Kiki is the target. Zapman hitting him with the axe. 2 dead LG members. Trifecta with a 5-on-3. Get the tier 2 tower in the solo lane. Now transitioning towards the Fire Giant. Great plays from Paul that last team fight. Who needs the Taiko drums when you got the Percussive Storm? Both Soul Reaver and Ethereal Staff popped onto the Sylvanus. Just could not survive that one. Needs to get more magical defense if he wants to survive this late game Raijin.
There's no dedicated magic defense item, right? It's
hybrid.
We saw what happened. He got destroyed. I mean, he does have some, obviously, by the way of Binding and Gauntlet of Thieves, and he's building into another hybrid item there towards the end, but it's not enough. Not up against this build from Paul, man, with the Spear and the Ob Shard, and as you said, Soul Reaver Ethereal Staff. He's removing people.
You need to go for a Bulwark of Hope at this point because that's what LG need. They need some hope to be able to survive against Paul's damage. If he's accurate with his combination of Percussive Storm from the Raiju, then it's just lights out for LG when they clump up that close together, allowing Paul to remain the top player damage of the game.
Well, Trifecta now have the Fire Giant on everybody. They have tier 2 towers to grab as they got the tier 2 in right after winning the fight right underneath it. So they can add even more gold to their already 10,000 gold lead. 20,000 experience. That's been a problem all game long. Now that should be pretty much irrelevant at this point, 30 minutes into the game. Only Weekend needing one more level outside of these supports who are even. So it's really the goal that you have to track at this point.
It's definitely true. About 4.5 items for Weekend, and most of them still also have their blessings. keegsmate still sitting in the Hunter's Blessing, as Geno sold his blessing to finish off that Mantle of Discord, really trying to get that little bubble popped at the tail end of it. Once you reach that 30% health threshold, you get that CC immunity and a little Geb mini stun around you. And that's not a bad idea if you're trying to get off a Wrath of Terror around multiple members.
But you called it already. Between these two supports, who's the one that gets blown up first, right? Who gets controlled a little bit more by the other team? And that time it was Geno. It's not been easy for either one of them, stepping a toe out of line and getting blown up immediately. Who could play it a little bit more patiently and a little bit more cautiously?
So I think I was pretty accurate in terms of my Weekend Warlock Staff stacks counter. 32 minutes into the game until he finishes that one.
Just about done at this point. I mean, it's been rough here on the Hopwa, and Weekend, to his credit, just even with being behind, he's been positioning the best he can, finding what damage he can. Some crushing waves have really been impactful in these fights, if not to fully kill someone, but to at least force them back or to kind of force Trifecta to disengage. So there's still been some positive elements, but I'm sure he would have loved to have been a lot closer throughout these first 32 minutes.
Even using his ultimate defensively to disengage from certain ultimates coming out of Mask's Ratatoskr, immuning the knockup, even getting some damage in return. It's not like Weekend played poorly. He's just hadn't had the ability to defend against the pressure from Trifecta. And this is where this is the way you shut down a Hobwa jungle. You just apply the pressure onto him. You don't allow yourself to be the ones getting ganked.
And they applied that pressure onto the solo side jungle too. I think that's part of why they had so much focus on Kiki, is that if they could force him back or get the kill, they'd kind of be opened up to coming to this side of the jungle, and Weekend wouldn't have as much backup. So that's kind of helped them limit this Hobwa as well, as they group up to push this mid-Phoenix.
Mid-Phoenix being looked at by Trifecta with Fire Giant around their waist for another 50 seconds. Looking for some long-range poke. Not able to find it is Geno on the pole. NeiruMah tanking up the Phoenix. Trifecta looking for an opening. Phoenix already about half health.
Paul looking for some good damage. Weekend gets stunned, but they're not able to find any immediate follow-up on it. Everyone relics are available, but not quite upgraded for Keeks and Clout. That could be an opportunity here for Trifecta as Neil gets collapsed on almost immediately, but this time he survives the burst, is able to make it back through. Now Tycho drums into everyone, but Weekend gets Paul early on. Double kill for Weekend as he finds NeiruMah as well. Zapman, Mask, and Scary D all have to run the carpet to give him a little bit of extra movement speed, but Trifecta are hightailing it out of here.
This is the late game Habwa that you gotta be worried about. Great play out of Weekend, really stopping Trifecta right in their tracks. Phoenix wasn't even close, maybe, says Luminosity, as they're now the ones with the pressure for at least 30 seconds before NeiruMah and Paul come up. Not sure if this is going to be a Phoenix, but at least a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 tower.
And this is the one thing. Trifecta's been very patient throughout this game, and they've had the lead for almost all of it. And Luminosity been able to slow them down just a little bit. They went so long without giving up any Tier 2s that it's created all this time for Weekend to catch back up in this game. Yes, he struggled behind early, and he had a build path that ended up kind of hurting him when this whole team fell behind. But now it's starting to curve back out a little bit. He's a level 20, 34-minute Habwa, either way you slice it.
It's a roller coaster of emotions for LG that really rely on Weekend. Scary D, though, going in with the defender of Olympus on top of Geno. The rest of their teammates were relatively close, but couldn't really seal the deal after that Wrath of Terror.
Was forced out, which means there's no way they could go in and try and taunt him back. But this is all because the Fire Giant's just about to spawn. Anything they could try and force out before this fight would make it a little bit easier if LG want to come defend. Remember, they don't have to worry about any fire minion waves or anything like that on a Phoenix. They can come try this fight.
Could look for Weekend, forcing out the Magai's cloak, and they know his beads were used during that mid-Phoenix siege for at least another minute. They don't have to worry about that defensive relic, and that's what Trifecta are going for, trying to eliminate this late game Habwa's presence.
Paul has beads and Aegis. Keegs only has the Aegis for another 40 seconds. There are some opportunities for a nice taunt from NeiruMah to get some good results, to get some poke off onto Kiki. But at this point, it's no full engage. Look where Mask is waiting on the left-hand side to try and wrap around.
There's no vision from LG on that side. Kiki's the one that gets taunted. Percussive Storm coming through. Mask, still waiting for his opportunity. I'm not sure if he's spotted, but he's looking for someone trailing in the back line.
He may not be so big, but he's certainly lurking this time, lurking in the back line. He wraps around right when Scary D blinks in. Tycho drums. They're all lined up, and Paul is deleting everybody. Mask gets Clout. Scary D's going to move forward with the work right, but Zapman is the one jumping in. He's looking for shots on the right-hand side. They force out Geno on the left-hand side. Kiki will see it back at the fountain, buddy. Weekend in a little bit of trouble as well as Mask hunts down the tree. It's only Weekend, the lone Weekend. No way to defend up against 5 as the water hits nobody. D aside for Trifecta, and they should be able to walk right into the Titan room.
LG were in the wrong alleyway, wrong neighborhood against Paul's Raijin. Great use of the Tycho drums, hitting multiple members. 3, maybe even 4 LG members got clipped by several of those drums. One team fight, one late game team fight is all it takes between these two magical characters, between both Habwa and Raijin. And this time, Paul, Trifecta, getting the better end of it.
So beautifully orchestrated. That wasn't by chance at all, man. I mean, Mask looping around the back end. The second he goes into engage, Scary D blinks in as well, and what's waiting? Tycho drums right on top.
And the thing is, like, when it was Mask going for the flank, everyone turns around to see him, and then they're not having their eyes onto Paul's Raijin. And if you're not listening for that audio cue of the Tycho drums, you're going to get caught slipping.
Well, who was you all's MVP in that game? Poll is up, and we need y'all to go ahead and vote so we can get your thoughts on that one. Paul certainly could be suggested. Neil had some great taunts as well.
Yes, he did. I think it's Paul for sure because of his ability to really figure out the proper timing to shut down the enemy support Geno to make sure that he wouldn't be a factor when it was the race of like who's going to kill which support first. NeiruMah survived a little bit longer because of the Aegis.
Mask had a great game too. I mean, I could go through the whole list. Everyone played so well that game. That wasn't one star kind of stepping out. It was just them playing so well as a unit. But we'll get it back over to the desk and get the analyst thoughts on game 1.
Thanks a lot, friends. Luminosity and Weekend had a nice reprieve. I loved that double kill coming out of the Phoenix. But it still goes the way of Trifecta. You know, Taco and I were watching the game at the very end going like, I mean, how does this one, how are they going to end? It seemed so deadlocked, and then all of a sudden, Paul
just destroyed everybody with those Tycho drums. Unfortunately, Luminosity, like, funneled. It felt like they were almost in an assembly line for Paul. pretty much. Mask gets a really nice through the Cosmos towards the end there, and then Paul just goes straight up into the Taiko drums, tears everybody's HP bars down to pretty much nothing, and it's all just cleanup crew after that. And for what it's worth, though, Luminosity at the very start, I think they had a lot of promising early picks, especially looking towards Kiki over there in the solo lane. Some really impressive Artio gameplay coming out of that.
Can you read me the damage? Well, it's gone now.
It was 36,000 pretty much.
36,000 damage. The closest one to Paul was 21,000 on a Hunter. He almost doubles second damage here for top damage of his own. This was the game-ending play. 37,379 was the total damage there. You can see it on the left side. And just Paul going to town here, cleaning things up. Wonderful play here from the mid lane mage. The rookie mid laner, by the way.
It's because he's using the right skin for this. You've got to use the monkey skin if you're going to play Raijin. That's the only way to do it.
I like the I like the tier 2 with the funny mask.
Are you talking about the Rockstar one?
No.
No. You're talking about the Okay, I got you. I got
funny
you.
Mask.
Monkey's still better.
Monkey's good, but when he doesn't speak, when you're playing it in ranked and you're like VF1,
That's
VF2,
the best part about the skin.
He just like ooks you.
It's like using the dinosaur Camazot skin. That's the whole point. You're just trying to screech at people.
Can you do an impression of the Dino Camazot
Of the.
That was way too good.
That's my announcer voice pack preview, by the way, for anybody wondering. It's just going to be the Camazot skin.
I was not expecting that one. Please give me the...